Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. My name is Alyssa and you're here at Pages and Portraits. Today I'm going to be doing the mid-year freakout tag. So the mid-year freakout tag initially, just going off memory from last year, I thought was going to be kind of looking back at my goals. But then when I started watching other people's 2021 videos, I realized they're very specific questions. The mid-year freakout tag is very strange to me because, it's very surreal that I'm doing this right now. Sorry, the camera's kind of shaking. Because I first started watching Booktube based off video responses about the Black Lives Matter protests, plus mid-year freakout tag. So when I decided to start doing Booktube videos and uploading kind of regularly, not at all, to YouTube again, I wanted to do a mid-year freakout tag, but I was like, I don't really think I'm at a place I'm ready for that yet. So here I am a year later, not on the anniversary of my first video, but on the time that I was like, okay, name, pages and portraits, all that, kind of a year out from that. So we're going to start the video because it's already a minute in and I haven't gotten to the point. So the first question is, what is the best book I've read so far in 2021? And I have read 3 5-star reads, a bunch that were like 4.5, 4.75. But the best of the best has to be White Tears, Brown Scars, How White Feminism Betrayed Women of Color. And this is by, I believe, her name is pronounced Ruby Hamad. So she is a writer. Well, she wrote a book. But even before that, this was her first book. It was a debut novel or book. I don't know if it's nonfiction, if you can still consider it a novel. She wrote articles about race and life. And one of her articles went very, very viral. And she saw the response, the negative responses from some people she got, and the positives of people being like, this happens to me too. And it's kind of the whole Karen, barbecue, Becky. That's how they hook you into the book, but that's not what the book is about because it goes beyond that. And she really does take a global approach to talking about this topic. I'm looking at a flag from what I marked earlier. I'm almost positive she's a Lebanese, Australian writer. Her background is Middle Eastern studies, and this book delves into the kind of faux or exaggerated victimhood that sometimes white women put on people of color to wield what little power they have in like a patriarchal society, what little they have, and to amplify it to put people below them. So very, very good. She uses examples kind of from the past 200-ish years. And like I said, takes a global approach. She doesn't just do Anglo or white majority countries, even though this book is written in English and she's kind of been in Europe, Middle East, Australia, and the United States as far as her reach. She looks at Egypt, she looks at Syria, she looks at Japan, she looks at various countries in Africa. I believe Nigeria is one of them, and it's very, very good. Wow, 5 minutes on the first question. Whee! Let's go faster. What's the best sequel you've read so far in 2021? So that's easy. That is Can't Escape Love by Alyssa Cole. I've actually only read 2 series this year, or something, duologies or more would be a series. And that has been the Reluctant Royal series, and now I'm starting the Runaway Royal series, and then I read the Day of Abide trilogy by S.A. Chakraborty. There's only 2 sequels in the City of Brass series, the Day of Abide trilogy, and there's tons of books with Alyssa Cole's Reluctant Royals, so it's kind of easier to pick, and that's going to be Can't Escape Love, which is like one of the novellas in between the main series. And the only reason I give this a 4.75, and if I read it again, which I plan on rereading it because I plan on purchasing it, I think I would give this a 5-star. It's just the narrator. I've heard anime or anime, and she said anime. I don't know. It was very cringy, and that kind of took me out of the book. But other than that, great book, great narration, great writing, so good. So the next question is new releases I haven't read, but I want to. Forget the Alamo by Brian Burrow, Chris Tomlinson, and Jason Stanford, I believe is the names. And it's the rise and fall of an American myth. I am from Texas. I've been here my whole life. I have felt very indifferent about the Alamo, the Texas independence in general. From that point, the strive for independence forward is a very boring part of Texas history. I felt like things didn't make sense, and then the more I've learned through other books that I'm not going to go into in this video, it's starting to clear some things up. And that book I bought because the writers were supposed to do a talk at a Texas, at Bullock Museum. It's either in or near the capital of Texas. And since it's a state-run museum, Republicans in the state came in and said, you can't talk about how slavery influenced Texas independence and our laws and our traditions. And they got the event canceled. And then the book started selling out, and I was like, I really want to get this book. And if I don't get it now, I'm not going to get a first edition copy, which is like such a small thing, but also like I was feeling it. Okay, so I got that book. What is my most anticipated release for the second half of 2021? My most anticipated release is a sequel to this book, A Song of Race and Ruin by Roseanne A. Brown. And I don't know what the series is called, or I don't know if it's going to be a duology or a series, but the second one's on the back right there. And that is A Song of Storm and Silence. I don't know, Song or Palms. I forgot. But that is my most anticipated release. That hasn't come out yet. That's coming in the second half of the year. But I know it's supposed to come out at the end of the year. I've already seen the cover. Well, the cover's on the back of that. So I'm very excited for that. My biggest disappointment this year, hands down, because this was one that I went in with very high expectations and I did not really care for. And that is Wonder Woman by Grant Morrison. Grant Morrison is kind of like in the pantheons of comic book writers. And I believe this is the first thing I've read from him. Now, I've watched adaptations of his work and know stories from like readings on YouTube, but this is the first one I read, and it's a character I really like, and I did not like it. It had some qualities that didn't make it suck, but it more just made it But yeah, that was a major disappointment to not enjoy one of his works, and it's not one that he's most famous for, but it's still kind of sad. So moving on. The biggest surprise this year, I have two written down. So one is Luster by Raven Leilani, I believe. Leilani. This one was kind of a surprise because I had heard it was very good, but I knew nothing of it. So like, whew, that book, that book is a lot, and it's really good, and it's really messy, and it's a really ugly book. But I really, really enjoyed it, and like I had medium expectations, but I couldn't really have high because I didn't know anything about it. I just like the cover. The cover is gorgeous. But yeah, it surpassed my expectations. It was a very big surprise how much I enjoyed it. Because, you know, can't judge a book by its cover, but its cover was so gorgeous. Another thing that surprised me was A Princess in Theory by Alyssa Cole. And this is the first, one of the first adult contemporary romances I ever tried. Definitely the first of the whole, like, romance mass paperback. This is a book from the spin-off series, but there is definitely like a genre of romance that honestly the kind that's less respected that comes out automatically like this. Like, look how small that is. This is the second book of the spin-off series. I think it's Runaway Royals, and the other one's Reluctant Royals. So the first book in that series blew me away. I loved it, and it got me to read the other 4 or 5 books in that series, if you're including the novellas in between the main novels. So that was a big surprise for me, and I read it to kind of tackle my internalized misogyny, and I'm not going to say it's defeated. It's definitely not. There's always work to be done, but I love romance genre now. Only read like 1 or 2 authors, but I'm going to say I like the genre. We'll see where this goes. A new favorite author. So I have 2. One is Alyssa Cole, the writer that I just discussed. And the other one is S.A. Chakraborty. She is a Muslim American author. She wrote the Devabai trilogy. She's writing another series right now. Has to do about pirates. I don't know when it's going to come out because the other books are really, really big and they took her a decade to write. I'm not really rushed, but I do like to see her updates on Instagram. So, S.A. Chakraborty and Alyssa Cole, for sure. Newest fictional crush. This one I had to sit on because I was like, I don't really have a crush on any characters. Not to say like that's bad, but I just don't. There's very few times I have had one, and they have been fleeting because I don't remember what they are, but I know I've had them when I was younger. And so when I thought about it, I was like, in Legendborn, one of the lead characters, Nick, seems cute, but I don't really know. I think it's just like adorable when stuff happens, but I don't really want to say anything else. The interactions with another character are adorable, so I would say that was attractive. It's funny, I read this many romances, and I'm not going to say they're a crush, but in Shadowborn, he's cute. Newest favorite character. Now this one is pretty easy. All my favorite books this year have been, for the most part, nonfiction, but from fiction, I have two. So one is going to be Ren from the Poppy War, and I just got the Dragon Republic on Libby, my Libby app, my library app. So Ren is definitely one, but I really like Ollie from the Day of Abide trilogy. He's so well-rounded. He's so complicated. There's a lot of things where, like, I would not, he's definitely, like, more of a good character, but almost, like, to a fault where, like, I've been called that person, and I'm like, man, you're worse than me. But also, I'm not very religious. I'm agnostic, and he is very religious and exploring, that part of himself, which is very, very interesting in the book, series, and I feel very, very complicated about him, but I love that about him. So Ali from the Day of Abide trilogy is one of my new favorite characters. A book that made me cry. None made me cry. However, Empire of Gold from the Day of Abide trilogy. Honestly, like, every one of those books had a moment of, like, so each of them almost made me cry, but I didn't cry for any book I read this year. I cried like once last year. I don't really cry. It really depends. Like, I have to be already sad and then read a book and a sad thing happen and then I cry. I don't really cry just based off the book. A book that made me happy would be The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wang. I don't know if I've been saying the authors this whole time, but that book made me really happy. Then I went to go review it and I read some stuff and then it made me less happy and I had to knock down my review because I don't really want to get into it right now. I'll get into it at the end of the year. But when I finished the book, I felt so happy and warm, and it's such a good graphic novel, and it's a one-off. So I really suggest checking it out at the library. The Prince and the Dressmaker. Favorite book to movie adaptation you saw this year? So I checked my Letterboxd because I started using Letterboxd like in February, and there's nothing that has been an adaptation so far this year. However, I did read Passing by Nella Larson, and a movie adaptation came out this year and it released at a film festival, and I read that it was going to come on to Netflix later this year, maybe as a Netflix original where like they own it now. I don't really know, but I will watch that. I found this out today when I was struggling to be like, have I really not read anything that was adapted, even like in the past, and it just got adapted, or they both are old and I just read them and watched them, but no, nothing other than comic books, but I wouldn't really count those because I haven't read them, but I watched the adaptation, so I can't really give you a good gauge of how I feel about that adaptation. Okay, so favorite review I've written this year. So this is two. I read my first Bell Hooks book, and I read a review on that, and I'm really proud. It's not that long. It's longer than all my other reviews, but it's just 4 or 5 sentences. I like the way I articulated how I felt about it. I gave that book a pretty high rating. The only problem I had with it was the kind of binary way she talked about gender, but also this book came out in the 90s, so like they were a little slack. My review of the book Rona and Jamil, which is a Romeo and Juliet retelling, I felt like I actually had something, instead of just saying, I didn't really like this, I was like, this is why I didn't like it. This is why I think if it were done again, could be improved upon. And I don't do that often enough, I don't think. Also, who am I to say? But also, like, I feel like that is good critique, is to just look forward, unless you feel like it's irredeemable, but this one was, and I felt like I conveyed that well in my review. The most beautiful book I bought this year so far. So what I'm trying to do, which I'm not really good at, is to buy books into the next year of my favorite from the previous year. And so those would be, that I technically bought this year, those would be A Song of Wraith the Ruin, as I mentioned earlier, and The Deep by River Solomon. These are books I really enjoyed that I read last year, and so I purchased them technically this year. And then books that I bought this year, and one I'm starting and one I have to start so I can finish the series, is Legendborn by Tracy Dion. I just had the paper because the book is somewhere else, but look at this cover. It's so beautiful. I kept it separate since I'm kind of carrying around the book. And then the other one would be Descender. And this was illustrated by Dustin Nguyen. But this whole book it's done in watercolor. So it's just gorgeous. And that's Descender Volume 6. So the last two I bought and am reading this year. And the other two I technically bought this year, but I read them last. What books do I really need to read by the end of the year? So a lot. I really need to get to Cecily Tyson's book, As I Am. I keep putting it back on Libby, like, I'm not ready yet, but I think July is my month. I'm gonna get to that. And then I need to read more Indigenous literature, period. Like, that's not one specific book. I do have this one-off comic from Marvel that I believe is Hawkeye's Daughter, which they're doing the adaptation for, so that would definitely be helpful. Yeah, it's a really beautiful graphic novel. But there we go. I need to get to this and more Indigenous literature, period. And then also, I need to read 4 specific books that were on my goal for this year that I have not got to. So those books are, I had my general goals, which I thought, again, what this video was, but it's not. So there is 5 books that I said, like, these specific titles I want to read. And the only one I read is The Poppy Boar by R.F. Kuang. I still need to get to Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, Kindred by Octavia Butler, All About Love by Bell Hooks. I read Bell Hooks. I've read Theory from her from one of my classes in the spring. And I'm starting another one. I'm like 14% in, and none of those is All About Love because it's very intimidating. I don't know why. It's just, I get frazzled. And then the final book is Man Killer, Chief and Her People, and it's an autobiography by Wilma Mankiller. This one is not on Libby, and I don't know why I picked this book when it's not on Libby, but that means I'm gonna have to purchase it, and I feel like when I purchase books, like, the likelihood that I'll finish reading it goes down a lot, so, because I have all this time. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I think I'm just going to have to buckle down and purchase it, and probably in September, because I'm looking for a job right now, so once I get a job, I'll purchase the book, maybe audiobook and physical book to help me read it, but those are the books that I need to get to by the end of the year. So we have Jane Austen, Wilma Mankiller, I didn't even see who wrote this one. I do not buy single issues. This is very hard to navigate. I think it's Jeffrey Vereg. That's what it says on the back. I have a quote. It's not on the inside cover or the back inside cover. Yes, I have a lot of books to get to. Thank you for watching this video. If you like it, please hit the like button and subscribe. Turn the notification bell so every weeks, months I upload a video, you will actually get to see it because it'll pop up in your notification feed. And also let me know, how are you doing on your book goals this year? You can answer any of the questions that I answered in the video, or you can just say, like, how is your book goal going? Because mine are not going so great. I usually catch up during the summer, and I'm still like 2 books behind my goal, the pace I need to be. So let me know how yours is doing. Thank you for watching. See you next time.